We got a super interesting B patch that dropped on Tuesday, so let's get into what it was. If you guys didn't check it out before, I had a little prediction thing where I listed out all the changes and then my predictions down here, so let's see how we did. So my first one was Zed would still be good, and I was a little wrong on this. Zed is still playable, but he's definitely not S tier. He's probably like low A, high B tier. Yone is still going to be good. He's like one of the best units still. Cultists got nerfed too hard. This was correct. Cultists are pretty much nowhere to be found this week, and last one, Keepers, they're still pretty good. Jarvan's still OP, and like Keepers with Dusk, it's probably the best comp in the game. I actually listed out down here. We have a sneak peek there. So let's just get right into it. I just want to preface this. Big gap between the S tiers and the A tiers. So S tiers right now, they're feeling more like an S+, and the A tiers are feeling more like an A-. But Dusk, Divine, Warwick, by far the two best compositions. At least two people are going for each comp every game. So we have like 2 Dusk players, 2 Warwick players, and then like a third one of either of them. So like 5 team comps are already decided. And then the last 3 people, they decide between one of the A and B tiers. So that one's pretty much split pretty evenly. It's just whatever someone's hitting. Most likely there's a Zed player. If someone goes for bow, they get a lot of bow. So that's 6 team comps. And then the last 2, it's really like anything of these other ones. But in the A tier, we have Zed Ninja Shade, Moonlight Diana, and Warlords. In B tier, we have Duelists, Sharpshooters, Hunters, Ahri Vanguard Mystic, Ashe Elderwood Brawlers. The A and B tier are pretty close together. It's just like all the S tiers and then like everything else. That's pretty much what this patch is so far. Maybe it'll change in the next couple of days. We do have the final patch of 2020 next Tuesday or Wednesday, so definitely excited for that too. Oh, by the way, you guys, I know that people love the meta snapshot, but I do have other content on my site too. I noticed that like people really only go for the snapshot, but if you check out the homepage, I release a bunch of articles every week. We have a handy cheat sheet over here that you could use for easy reference in your games. And I am working on this. It is a work in progress. I'm going to be adding a lot more stuff to it in this next week. So definitely look out for that. Again, all on my website. Right now we're on BunnyMuffins.lol/meta. But yeah, then we'll go into the item breakdowns, and then we could check out how we made the tier list. But starting in the S tier, again, we have the Dusk comp. You could go 4 or 6 Dusk plus anything. 6 Dusk is probably the strongest just because Riven becomes an absolute monster. I put 2 items on her. I put Bramble Vest and Ionic Spark, but you definitely want 3 on her, but there's so many different options. I list them all out in the how to play section down here, so you can go ahead, check that out after you build like 2 of the primary items. After that, you want Jhin itemized. Jhin's very important now because he is super strong. He one-shots a lot of things. He takes care of a lot of different large tanks that were previously unkillable just because they buffed Jhin a lot in the patch 10.24. But yeah, this comp's still really strong. It's a little tricky to play just because there are a lot of different substitutions you can make. As you can see here, like I list out a lot of options of stuff you can go, and you could also just like rush level 9, play a bunch of legendaries instead. You have to know what to take in, what to take out. So it is a little trickier than the other comps. Divine Warwick, this one is like easier than the other comp. You go for 6 Divine, so Divine Chosen's the best. You don't have to have 6 Divine, but it's good, you know. Warwick, QSS, very important. Runon's Hurricane, probably one of the better items. And then Deathblade, that's my favorite damage item on Warwick. You definitely need the QSS, though, because he's in the front line. A lot of units hit the front line, so he's probably going to get CC'd. For example, if you faced a mirror match of what the board is here, check it out. Aurelia has CC, Jax has CC, Lee Sin has CC, and Shen doesn't. He just taunts. But yeah, you need a QSS. The Lux is going to stun maybe. They have another backline stunner. Who knows? Bottom line is you want Quicksilver Sash on your Warwick so he could really pop off. It's going to be really strong for you. The rest of the items, they really don't matter. They could be support items. A lot of people, they run Morgana instead of Lux or Ezreal to play a Morello Nomicon. But you could just put it on Ezreal also. You could put some support items on like Jax or Aurelia or Lee Sin or Shen. And then, of course, if you get 2-star Yone, itemize Yone. Like, he's probably one of the best champions in the game still. Going into the next one, we have the Zed Ninja Shade. So, Zed's still good. He's just not as dominant as he was before the nerfs, and that's because he got an attack speed change, and he is very reliant on attack speed because he both steals attack damage and he has shade damage added as well. But Rapid Fire Cannon, Runons, the 2 core items, I would say. And then third item, you could go more attack speed, you could go attack damage, you could go like a Giant Slayer, you could go QSS is what I prefer, but third item doesn't really matter as much as you think it does. You could still do really well without the QSS. As long as you have a bunch of Zeke's Herald. Zeke's Herald's really good on Zed. Sorry, it's good to hit Zed with the Zeke's Herald. So you generally put that on a Kali. Get like 3 Zekes if you can. That's not always possible, so that's why I don't list them all out here. So I give you some other options. You could build Chalice, you could build Lockets. That pretty much uses every item. So on the Zed, he uses all the bows, he uses some Negatrons, and he uses a crit. That belts and swords, they go on Zeke's. Tears, you could build a Chalice. And then Rod and Chain, Lockets. So that pretty much covers all the items. That's going to be a really good balance for you there. Going into the next comp, we have Moonlight Diana. It's a lot weaker than it was before. I probably overrated this last patch, or not last patch, like the last week. But it's still decent if you get a good start for it. It's like kind of a why not go for it type of deal. But there are a couple of other Moonlight builds that you can explore. So instead of always forcing Diana if you get a chosen Moonlight, you could play some Aphelios builds, which we'll get into later. You could also, I still see some Lysandra, not that much, but you generally want to stick with Diana. But I'm just saying that there are other options if you want to try that out. Going into the next build, we have Warlords. Warlords is one of the win the mid-game comps with 6 Warlords and then play literally anything. And then level up to level 9, roll down, get a bunch of legendaries. Hopefully you get a chosen legendaries. And I feel like Warlords is one of the best comps to get to level 9 if you get a good start for it. But that's a key phrasing. You need to get a good start for it. It's hard to get a good Warlord game because you need to snowball from the very beginning. So if you get some unlucky losses, things could do the opposite of a snowball. I don't really know what that's called, but if you guys checked out my how to get to master video, I had what seemed like a small mistake and it just turned out to be completely devastating to my entire game plan. And it just goes to show like a tiny mistake, they could really build out and really cost you in the long run. I'll leave a link in the top right just so you guys can check that out if you really want to use that video to learn how to get to masters. Okay, so now we have the B tiers. B tiers are still really good. As I said, A and B tier this week, they're really close together. So we have the Duelist. Duelist is just reroll Yasuo. You guys already know how to play this. You get like a chosen Yasuo early. You slow roll for him at level 5. So slow rolling is you roll down to 50 gold every turn if you guys are new. And you just hope that you hit 9 Yasuos to get him to 3-star. Once he gets 3-star, he gets really strong. Put a bunch of items on him. I prefer this item combination, Infinity Edge, Quicksilver, and the Titans. Most melee carries, they pretty much need the Quicksilver. Zed's kind of an exception because he has a Shade bonus, which makes him disappear every now and then. But if you have like a Warwick, a Yasuo, you probably want the QSS on them. Next up, we have Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter, man, I still really think that they're being misplayed because theoretically, they should be getting a lot stronger this patch. Their counter got nerfed, Jhin got buffed, and 2 and 3 cost carries got buffed, and this comp uses 2 and 3 costs really, really well. So I really feel like there should be a little more Sharpshooters, or at least a little more success than we've been currently seeing. But no one's really figured it out yet. Maybe one of you guys could. If you guys do figure out how to play Sharpshooters very optimally, let me know, and we'll check it out after that. But you pretty much play pretty standard with this build. 6 Sharpshooter isn't completely necessary. You could play with 4. I actually think a lot of the more consistent builds are with 4 Sharpshooters because then you have more of a front line. Depends on your matchup though, depends who you're facing. Next up we have Hunters. Hunters is really fun to watch because I love watching people get the Hunter procs. It's just really entertaining for me for some reason. Don't ask me why there's a Warmogs on Kindred. Why is that there? I'm so confused. I need to update this. I must have just put it up there in error or something like that. But you want to do carry Ashe. Ashe is still the best hunter, even though Aphelios is very interesting. You could try Aphelios carry. I've seen people do it. You go like Bloodthirster, Quicksilver Sash, and then like a Rage Blade. It's fun to watch, but I think Ashe is more consistent. But if you do get a bunch of Aphelioses, you get it like to 3-star. Go ahead and try it out. Let me know how that comes out for you. Next up, we have the Ahri Vanguard Mystic. Ahri, I personally love Ahri, but with Yone being so strong, there's not much point going into this build because you go Mystic, you go Vanguard. That's a lot of resistances, right? But Yone shreds armor and magic resist, so he essentially makes all these defensive buffs kind of useless. So if you do really stack someone like a Sejuani with like a Bramble Vest, a Dragon Claw, 4 Vanguard, 4 Mystic, like she's still going to die to the Yone. So it's not really that fun to experience. Ahri herself, she still isn't that great after her ability change, but she's still playable. It's just a lot different and a lot weaker than what it was before. But mainly it's the Yone that's really causing this team to kind of fall back to the wayside right now. But once they adjust him a little bit, which I think they will be in the next patch. They kind of have to, right? Yone's just way too strong, and he fits in literally every team. Once he gets toned down a bit, I think this comp will be a little stronger than it is now. Next up, we have the Ashe Brawler with Elderwood, or Brawler or Elderwood. You could use any combination. We also saw the Hunter version before. But this is like the standard build we've been playing since the beginning of the set. I have a guide on this, so I'll leave a link in the description or on the top right corner. You go for Ashe 2-star, you get a bunch of Brawlers, get a bunch of Elderwood. You could go 6 Brawler, 8 Brawler, 2 Brawler even. You could go 3, 6, 9 Elderwood, depending on what you hit. You could play random legendaries afterwards and drop like down to 3 Elderwood, 4 Brawler. Lots of different options there. Set got buffed recently, so he's a little more useful than he was before, although he is not completely broken like how he was in the beginning of the set. But overall, I think this comp is still decent. C tiers now. C tiers you kind of want to avoid. It's not the end of the world if you play them, but you really need a great start or like a great game specifically for these builds. So we start with the Enlightened build. Ignore the Yone items, like you just throw anything you get on him. You can't itemize for your legendaries, but if you want to go Talon and Morgana carry, it's doable. It's just like Talon got nerfed so much. Yeah, he's just not the same anymore, to say the least. But you guys can go ahead and still try this. It's still decent if you get all the 2-star upgrades for free. Then you go level 9 and then play a bunch of legendaries. So it's like a slightly different play style from before. We have Reroll Mage. Reroll Mage, like, it does really well at really random times, but that's because people only go for Reroll Mage if they get a great start for it, such as a lot of Luden's Echoes and a lot of Namis and a Chosen Nami. She pretty much carries through the entire mid game on her own, and then like you could do fast 9 strategies, you could roll it down at level 8, get some other 3 stars. There are a lot of different options you can do, but the name of the game now is like playing a lot of random legendary units. So I personally like the go fast 9 after you get like a bunch of Ludens on Nami early game. It's really strong, but you just can't play this that often. So that's why it's in the C tier right now. Just because you're going to be playing this like 1 out of 20 games, for example. Cultists, yeah, Cultists, they got hit pretty hard. I mean, 3 Cultists, 6 Cultists, they got nerfed to the ground. They used to be really good in the early game so that it allows you to get to 9 Cultists. Right now, it's really hard to get to 9 Cultists because 3 and 6 are comparatively weaker than what they were before. It's still a strong synergy, but why would you play 9 Cultists when you could play 6 Dusk instead when you have the Cultist start? Because that's a popular transition from that type of start. It's still decent, though, if you hit 9 Cultists. It's just not that easy to get there, and you'll have much less life than you had before. Carousel, it's pretty interesting right now. Rod, I see people going for Rod the most. I think Rod is great for early game items like Locket. You need a bunch of Rods if you're going to play Riven. It's good for Dust Spatula. You could build like stuff like Gunblade on Diana. You could build Ludens, Rageblade, Morello. Like there are a lot of different things you could build, and everyone seems to be going for this the most from all the games that I've analyzed. Chain Vest, really good whenever you're in a Riven meta. So right now we are in a Riven meta. So stuff like Sunfire, stuff like Bramble Vest, really strong on her. GA works in almost any composition. Locket, as we talked before, is always going to be a good item right now. Sword, obviously you still need swords, so that's why it's still up there. Tier, it's kind of interesting. It builds a lot of the good but not optimal items, such as like Hand of Justice, for example, or Chalice of Harmony. But I feel like with the option of blue buff, there are a bunch of champions that really rely on that. It's got some uses, and the rest of the items are just pretty bad right now, so that's why Tier's kind of in the middle of the road spot right now. But definitely it's like Rod and Chain are by far the best right now. After that, we have Bow. Go for bows if you play Zed. That's about it. Glove, it's kind of weak right now because QSS isn't as necessary as it was before because not a lot of champions truly need it. Same with Negatron, and then Belt's in last place right now just because it builds the fewest amount of items compared to everything else. It really only builds like Sunfire and Zeke's, but you need other items when you play those builds that are much higher priority. So also Zizirot, not as important as it was in the last meta because last meta you needed Zizirot to counter the Talons, but people don't play Talon anymore, so that's why you don't need Zizirot anymore. I have like a item quadrant here that you guys can use as a guide. You want to build the items on the top right. Those are both strong and versatile. Bottom left is situational and weak. And then top left, bottom right, they're either situational and strong on the top left or versatile but weak on the bottom right. What you build during the game depends on what items you get, how much life you have, and all that. But you could use this as kind of like a guideline to kind of see what you can build in the course of the game. So just to summarize for this week, we have the Dusk, Divine Warwick comp. We have the Zed, Ninja Shade, and Moonlight Diana and Warlords in the A tier. B tier, Duelists, Sharpshooters, Hunters, Ahri, Ashe, and then C tier we have Enlightened, Reroll Mage, and Cultists. S tiers are really far ahead of everyone else right now, so I definitely would stick to those. You could probably just force either of these builds depending on what items you have at stage 2-1. So if you have like a bunch of Warwick items, go Warwick. If you have a bunch of Riven items, go for Riven. And then everything else, only go if you don't have a good start for one of these two builds. So you can kind of play that way. There are a lot of different options. TFT is great because there are a ton of different play styles. All the top 10 players, they play so differently. It's actually kind of nuts that all of them are in the top 10 because of how differently they play. It's not 10 people using the same exact formula. And I guess that is one of the great things about this game because it's very far from being solved. But that's it for me for this week. Hope you guys learned something from this video. And if you guys did, go ahead, hit the like button. If you guys are new, go ahead and subscribe. I'll be back on Tuesday, which again is the last patch of 2020. So I'll go ahead and review that patch and give my predictions for that. So I hope to see you guys there. But apart from that, all the links in the description below. Check all those out if you guys want to support me even further. But I'll see you guys next time.